I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to the story. Well, the storm is still on the way, but other than some brutal freezing rain and wind, just the wind, not the rain yet, and some isolated power outages, we've not seen a ton of problems so far. Congrats to all of you who sent loved ones off at the airport or greeted folks coming in. You are fortunate because we do expect that freezing rain and things to get a lot worse tonight. So, of course, that is our big story. Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino is here with the very latest conditions. Matt?
Thank you, Pat. Yes, we're getting reports of, a lot of reports actually, of sleet and some freezing rain to the south and west of downtown. It won't be long before we're beginning to see it in Portland proper. The mix, well, in fact, we're already seeing it at the Portland airport now. We're getting some sleet falling out of the sky, 22 degrees, east winds. And you may be wondering, why is it not snowing when it's 22 degrees? I'll explain that in just a minute. But first, I want to show you Doppler radar. You can see the white. Now, that's mainly snow or sleet. And then it's interesting because we're getting reports of sleet Lake Oswego, Portland now. We're getting sleet in Sherwood, Canby, Wilsonville. All to the south and to the east, it's mainly sleet and a little bit of snow. To the west, where you see the pink and then the orange, we're getting more freezing rain. And that makes sense because it's all about the depth of the cold air. And the closer you guard, the farther north and east you are, the depth of the cold air is greater. And by that I mean from the surface up. There's a layer of warm air up there, which is why at 22 degrees, we're not just seeing snow. So as you get farther to the west, the depth of the cold air becomes more shallow. The depth of the warm air above it becomes deeper. And so we start seeing more rain turning to freezing rain as it falls into the shallow cold air in places like Banks, Forest Grove, and Hillsborough, which is where we're seeing the freezing rain. But we're getting the sleet reports in the valley proper, and that's what's beginning to march into the Portland area right now. In fact, is over the Portland area right now. So it has begun. This is the initial band. There will be more that continue overnight tonight and through the day tomorrow, when it will be mainly a freezing rain event tomorrow. But tonight, mainly a snow event. We had light snow in McMinnville. That has now turned to sleet. Sleet, Sherwood, Wilsonville, as close to Portland as Lake Oswego. And now in Portland, we're getting some sleet. And then the freezing rain that I mentioned over in Hillsborough and out in western Washington County and in the Coast Range. So the modeling, pretty consistent. It's backed off a little bit on the amounts that we get. Lesser in the Southern Valley, more in the Portland area, upwards of about 1/3 of an inch. I think our range will be between about 1/10 of an inch of ice and 4/10 of an inch of ice. But notice we still have that big bullseye out in the gorge where the cold air is a lot deeper. So you'll begin to snow. You'll get several inches of snow, and then you're going to get about an inch of ice between Multnomah Falls and Cascade Locks and even Hood River, about 1/2 an inch of ice on top of how much whatever snowfall falls before it turns to sleet and then freezing rain. And in the gorge, you may not warm above freezing until Monday. Now, this is also interesting. Up at Timberline right now, it is a bone-chilling 9 degrees. You know where it's colder? Below. Down at Government Camp, where it's 0. You know where it's warmer? Above. Top of the Magic Mile, 1,000 feet above Timberline, it's 26. That is a huge temperature difference over 1,000 feet from 9 to 26. And again, it illustrates that it's warmer up above, which is why we're not just seeing all snow. We're getting this mix of snow, but mainly sleet, and then eventually freezing rain rolling into the Portland area, Pat. So again, it's happening. The east winds continue. They will back off tomorrow, which is a good thing. And the temperatures, teens and 20s overnight tonight, we won't be warming up much at all. So light snow, sleet this evening. It'll be heavier after about 10 o'clock or midnight. Should change to all freezing rain about 2 to 4 a.m. as we're sleeping. You're going to wake up to everything coated in ice as the freezing rain continues into tomorrow. Pat?
Oh my, oh my, oh my. And we're told, by the way, the sleet is starting to fall here at Southwest 15th and Jefferson, right at the TV station. So you're accurate as ever, Matt. Thank you. Hey, do you have questions for Matt about this particular weather system? You can send them to us right now, and we'll bring Matt back later in the show to answer as many as possible. Just send an email to thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail. Yep, we'll even get your voicemails on. The number is 503-226-5090. Well, as the ice arrives later tonight, you can bet it's going to really slow down departures at Portland International Airport. I checked a little bit ago. There are still a bunch of planes that are scheduled to head off into the skies. One of the ways the airlines, of course, will fight back is through de-icing the planes. Now, I wanted to talk with the folks at our local airport to show you what they plan for tonight and how that's all done. But turns out they're just a little bit too busy to talk to me. Okay, fine. Fine, no problem. Southwest Airlines said I could use their video from Denver to explain de-icing, and that's going to work just as well. So let's take a closer look.
Here's how it works. Typically, if there's anything falling from the sky, 2 batches of liquid are sprayed on the plane. They're called Type 1 and Type 4. Type 1 is a mix of glycol and water. The glycol is similar to the antifreeze used in your car radiator. The publication Chemical and Engineering News reports it has a freezing point of about 9 degrees, and it keeps water from freezing until about 58 degrees below zero. The crews try to work fast.
Usually when the process we have to de-ice, it's usually like one of those, oh man, here we go, another, 30-minute or another hour delay. We try to do it quick, but we also do it. We make sure we do everything, we do it right, and we get the job done.
The first spray is put on hot, typically about 150 to 180 degrees. It can melt and knock off the ice without freezing onto the plane itself. It's important to get all the ice off the wings and the tail because even ice as thin as medium sandpaper can significantly increase drag and reduce lift, basically making it much harder for the plane to get in the air. So the job of the first de-icing team is to get everything off, returning the smooth flying surfaces. Here's a fun fact, by the way. This is done while passengers are on the plane, and the pilots temporarily close all the outside vents to keep the spray from getting into the passenger cabin. Type 1 is often mixed with an orange dye, so it's easy to see. How long does it last? Well, it depends. The industry term is holdover time. How long can the plane wait until it has to be sprayed down again? When it's really cold but dry, the holdover for Type 1 is 5 to 15 minutes, according to Chemical and Engineering News. If the plane cannot get airborne that fast, it has to get de-iced all over again. The FAA publishes guidelines for pilots that calculate the temperature, what the weather is doing, what the plane's made of, to figure out that holdover time. Look to the right here for the condition of freezing rain. That's not much time. If timing is going to be a problem, crews will often spray a second liquid, an anti-ice mix, onto the plane. That's what's called Type 4. That is a much thicker glycol mixture. It stays on the surfaces and keeps ice from forming. It does not last forever, though. In freezing rain, experts say even the Type 4 holdover time is roughly 15 minutes max.
So, in freezing rain, there's a real narrow window to get those planes de-iced and up in the air. And because the de-icing does take time and there are not unlimited amounts of trucks that can be doing it, you can see how delays and cancellation can quickly pile up. Once the planes are airborne, they have additional anti-ice systems that they use to knock the ice off the wings and the tail. Keeping on the icy travel beat, last night we explained how the state of Oregon and PBOT are using rock salt in certain areas to help drivers during wintry conditions. PBOT has this cool interactive map online, and you can see which streets will get the salt. The streets in purple are salt routes. Most of them are in the West Hills, but also a few in East Portland, including 82nd Avenue. Other streets get liquid magnesium chloride or sand. ODOT says road salt will be used for this storm if conditions call for it. If it is used, it will be spread in areas on Interstate 5, I-405, I-205, and Highway 26, all the big ones. After yesterday's story, we asked you for your comments, and you're always generous in sharing your thoughts with us, because there's certainly two sides to this salt debate. One, it helps drivers during wintry conditions by keeping ice and snow off our main roadways. But drawbacks include the salt's effect on the environment and the damage that it can do to our cars and the infrastructure like bridges over a long period of time. Here's a sampling of some of your thoughts.
I think maybe the roads that they put on the map, that it might be a good idea to salt, but not heavily and only as last resort.
Hi, Pat. No salt, please. Salt's bad. We hate it. Don't use it. Thank you.
Comments on salting the roads. I'm not a scientist and I don't pretend to be one, but I'm going to assume that they pretty much know what they're talking about. Still, because Oregon, at least Portland, doesn't have that many weather events that would require it, and some years we don't have anything at all, I think it would be all right to do it in moderation.
My name's Tom, and I vote no salt on the highways.
All right, thank you, Tom, and all the others. And here's a couple of comments from our YouTube video featuring the salt story. Yes, we do read those comments as well. Another person named Tom says of the salt, it's a horrible idea. We Oregonians need to unite against this. Complete disaster for our expensive vehicles. Shame on you, ODOT. And another viewer whose name on YouTube was a random assignment, as best we could tell, of letters and numbers. Well, that person wrote, "For the small amount of time that we use it, it's worth it. I grew up with it. It's no big deal. Wake up, Oregon." Well, we really do enjoy reading your thoughts and comments on the work we do here at The Story. We love featuring them as well, so keep them coming. Moving on. Oregon Governor Kate Brown is winding down her administration. After 7 years as governor, her time is almost over. Her last day is January 9th. Before she leaves, though, let's revisit the strange way she became governor. In 2015, Brown was Oregon's Secretary of State. That's the person who replaces the governor if they're not able to serve. At the time, John Kitzhaber, a Democrat, had just started a historic 4th term. But 1 month into it, amid an influence peddling scandal involving the governor and his fiancée, he abruptly resigned. Here's how Governor Brown remembers all that.
That week, I was at the National Association of Secretaries of State. I had been elected the president of the association, and our conference was just beginning. Before the conference even began, I got a call from Governor Kitzhaber saying he needed to talk to me. And I said, you know, what's the time frame? He said, basically now. So I literally hopped on an airplane and came back to Oregon.
Why wouldn't he just talk to you on the phone even?
He wanted to talk in person.
Okay.
So, and then we had, as you know, a relatively bizarre conversation when I got back. I arrived at the Portland airport. A security detail was there for me, and one of my staffers came, and we had a conversation. He talked about some of the work he was doing and where he wanted to go, and then he asked why I was here. I, of course, thought the conversation was a bit bizarre.
Did you think he was kidding?
I honestly didn't know what was happening at the time. So we had another conversation, a brief conversation, and then I didn't hear anything from him.
But he didn't say, "I'm going to step down, so you need to be ready"?
No, no. We obviously knew there was something going on. A couple of days later, I received the letter from Governor Kitzhaber saying he was going to resign. I believe that was a Friday. The letter said he was going to resign on the following Wednesday. So I knew at that point that I would be sworn in on the following Wednesday.
What was that like to read that letter and think, holy cow?
It was a lot. But I certainly felt like I'd been preparing for this job my whole life. I knew that the transition might be awkward. We were in the midst of a legislative session, which usually there's a lot going on. Governor Kitzhaber had created an agenda that was philosophically aligned with my values. And so we ended up meeting a few days later after the letter and had a conversation about what the transition might look like. We both care deeply about Oregon, the state that we love. And for the most part, the transition went relatively smoothly.
Was there a point, I'm just thinking if it's me, at least the next time I saw him, I'm going to say, what was the deal at the airport there, buddy?
Well, I think there was some stuff in the press about that, so I don't know. The best that I can tell at this point in time is that he had changed his mind by the time I arrived in Oregon. Wow. That's the best I can tell.
Yeah, but you never confronted him and say, why did you tell me to fly back? And
no,
yeah.
No.
I remember as a reporter, that was such a strange time.
It was fairly bizarre. I had left the association's meeting that I was presiding over. Yeah. I was presiding over, and I was back in Oregon. And it was just awkward. It was before the days of Zoom meetings, too. I think if things had been different, we would have put me on a Zoom video and I would have been presiding over the meeting remotely, virtually. But anyway, that was 2015.
Did you at some point turn to the future first husband and say, this is going to be an interesting ride?
Yes, I did. I am very fortunate. Dan, the first man, as we like to call him, is incredibly calm. He handles stress really well and is incredibly supportive. So he has been truly magnificent through all of this.
Yeah. You are lucky to have a
I am very lucky.
good spouse. And that's just a small part of the hour-long interview that I did with Governor Brown. You can watch the whole thing right now. It's posted on our KGW YouTube page. By the way, we're getting some of your comments and questions from Matt. Keep them coming. We'd love to have a bunch more. And still to come on the story, most of the gifts under the tree are still wrapped right now, but it's just a matter of days before the wrapping comes off, tossed aside to be forgotten forever. But can you recycle any of that, or should it all just go in the trash? We have the answers from a recycling specialist with Metro when the story returns. Welcome back. The joy in a child's face when they unwrap a gift this holiday season is really a special moment for sure. But often forgotten in the aftermath is what happens to the to the wrapping paper. Do you recycle it? Do you throw it out? What do you do? You're thinking about recycling all the time. But can you? Environmental reporter Cale Williams has our answer.
It's the holiday season, and that means presents.
Oh yeah, we got some styrofoam, some
With
string
presents
lights.
comes trash.
We have bows, wrapping paper that has glitter and plastic on it.
And it can often be hard to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do with leftover wrapping paper, packaging, or that tangled ball of string lights that blew its last bulb. So we thought we'd ask an expert.
Yeah, I'm Catherine Gerber. I'm with Metro, and I'm a recycling information specialist.
The holidays are one of her busiest times of year.
We see a big increase in waste over the holidays, of course, whether it be mountains of bubble wrap or shipping materials, anything like that, food waste, it all adds up over the holidays. And so now's a great time to figure out how can we reduce our consumption, of course, but also brush up about what can and cannot go in the recycling at home.
And there's a good reason why it's important that you put your trash where it belongs.
Well, we see a lot of wish cycling, so that's going to be putting things in the recycling bin that belong in the garbage, but we are wishing that they're recyclable and they're not. And that causes a big problem.
Having garbage in with your recycling can tangle the sorting machines, and it can even be dangerous to workers. If there's too much garbage mixed in, the entire load may not be recyclable at all. Now let's look at some of the most common holiday waste. First up, wrapping paper. Most of it's fine to recycle.
But if there's glitter, if there's plastic, foil pieces, that does make it garbage. So make sure to put that in the garbage bin, even though it's very pretty.
Gerber said she sees a lot of confusion around plastic.
So something like bubble wrap, rigid plastic packaging, packing peanuts, styrofoam, all of that goes in the garbage at home. And I think that's really important to know is most plastic packaging is garbage.
But wait, you might be thinking, my plastic has one of those fancy recycling symbols on the bottom. Gerber said those symbols, no matter what number's inside, don't mean something is recyclable.
The numbers do refer to the base type of plastic that's used, but it doesn't say anything about how it was manufactured, what other additives may be in there, and that can have a big impact on the recyclability of an item.
Gerber said she knows it can be confusing figuring out what goes where, but she's here to help.
Oh, absolutely. Give us a call at the Recycling Information Center. You can give us a call at 503-234-3000 or reach out to us online at oregonmetro.gov/askmetro. We are available in both English and Spanish.
And the best way to avoid putting something in the wrong bin? Don't get rid of it at all.
Yes, reuse can go a long way, and that's going to have a great environmental impact as well.
Cale Williams, KGW News.
Thank you, Cale. Up next, on the story, Chief Meteorologist Matt Zafino will be back with us to answer as many questions as time allows. If you have a burning question about the ice storm, send it now. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Welcome back. It's time for the Q&A segment of our show, and obviously we're talking about the ice storm here. So Chief Meteorologist Matt Zafino joins us from the Weather Center. And Matt, we do have a question that came in from a viewer named Sarah. She wants to know, hi Matt, when do you think the ice will start thawing in Portland tomorrow? Could I expect to drive tomorrow afternoon? Great question.
It is a great question, Pat, and it's one that I'm getting a lot. And the answer is not tomorrow.
Darn.
I think it's going to be Saturday for Portland. Now, as you head south down the Willamette Valley, it'll begin to thaw out sooner as they warm above freezing sooner than we will. But as you head east into the gorge, it may not thaw until Monday. So in Portland, I think it's going to be Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon, before we really begin to thaw out. And I want to point out what I'm standing in front of here. This is our Wells Fargo Skycam. I've zoomed in on some of the apparatus on the top of the building. Those are icicles hanging off of the structure here that supports the light. You can see occasionally some sleet going on by. You can see that these beams are getting coated in ice already. So it is happening. And we just heard from Catherine Cook, Pat, saying that she's down in Wilsonville, saying it's an ice rink down there.
Oh boy, time to put chains on my car before I go home, I think.
Exactly.
So Sarah, that's not the answer you wanted, but that is a good, clear answer. Catherine wants to know, I have a bag of de-icer and a super very steep driveway. When should I apply the de-icer? Before, during, or after?
See Pat's story about de-icing airplanes, right? You know what? You probably want to do it now. You want to do it before if it's de-icing agent to help keep the ice from forming. Once the ice gets a foothill and starts getting thick, I don't know if the de-icer is going to do enough to bring it down to just, you know, bare driveway, if you will. So yeah, I would get on that sooner rather than later. And again, it may not matter if we get enough ice. The de-icer is probably going to be overwhelmed anyway.
Good to just get sort of washed off. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt. And Margaret asked, what's the difference between sleet and freezing rain?
Great question. Freezing rain falls as liquid. It comes down, it hits you or your driveway or your car as liquid water, as rain. The problem is that's water that is falling into air that is below freezing. So once it stops falling and reaches the ground or your car or whatever, it freezes and it coats everything as ice. Sleet is already ice as it's falling. So it's raindrops that refreeze as they're falling. And so when they reach the ground, they're actually little ice pellets, and that's largely what we're seeing in the Portland area right now. So if you can hear it and it sounds like ice, that's sleet. If it's coming down as a liquid and then coating everything with ice, that's freezing rain.
Great explanation. All right, we've got some video from outside the station that has just come into us, and this is sleet that is falling in southwest Portland right now. So I know it's in a number of your communities. You're seeing it outside, and just want to let you know, so are we. We also asked for you to call in with your questions. We don't have the person's name, but we do have a voicemail question for you, Matt. Here we go.
So, sleet, freezing rain, is it going to glaze at a half an inch, a quarter of an inch, 1/10 of an inch? I think I heard 1/10 of an inch. Does that mean everything's glazed over only 1/10 of an inch, or question mark, more? I'm hoping for snow. Thank you.
We're all hoping for snow, but we're expecting ice. What do you think, Matt? How much?
You took the words right out of my mouth. We are all hoping for snow, but that's just not the case that we're in. In fact, when we look at Doppler radar, what you see here is a lot of purple, and that's mainly the sleet that's moving up into the Portland area. So as far as the amounts go, it's going to be a range. It won't be uniform across the Portland area. Some places will get as little as 1/10 of an inch. Other parts of the Portland area will see as much as 4/10 of an inch. I know that's a big difference, but 1/10 of an inch is enough to make things slippery. And sleet is better than freezing rain, as we explained yesterday, because with the freezing rain, it just creates a coating of ice on everything. The sleet, it's not snow. You can't brush it away like snow, but you can move it a little bit better. The problem with sleet is, as it begins to accumulate, cars drive over it, then it compacts into just glazed ice. That's what we're seeing down in Wilsonville right now already. And as temperatures begin to warm a little bit, not above freezing, but closer to freezing, that sleet will naturally begin to congeal into a solid layer of ice. So there is a difference between sleet and freezing rain and its impact once it falls. And as far as the amounts go, Pat, again, I think for the Portland area, somewhere between 1/10 of an inch and 4/10 of an inch before we begin to warm up and melt out on Saturday.
I feel like all answers start somewhere else and come back to it's going to be ice and it's going to be slippery.
That is the bottom line, for sure.
All right. Thank you, Matt. And thanks so much for all of you out there sending your questions and comments to us. We're going to wrap up the show right after this. Well, despite the nasty weather, this is the season of reunions at Portland's airport. If you've ever been out there, you know how heartwarming it is. Oh, look at that. To see the reunions of loved ones, family, friends that have come from far away, despite the weather, and maybe because of the weather. This year, those hugs may be a little bit tighter than usual. There were certainly a lot of them, as our photographer Scott Williams was hanging out watching for a little bit at PDX. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you got here safely and before this ice storm. We're not sure that a whole bunch more are going to be making it in overnight. Hey, that's the end of our show, though. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. Stay safe out there. We'll see you back here tomorrow.